So I went to see Love Never Dies recently, and what I heard was right. They did change some things about the show. And to prepare for this vlog and develop feelings or thoughts about the new changes to lyrics, I decided to try to get the soundtrack that was offered at the theater. And when I bought this soundtrack, they told me that this was the recording of the US tour, but they lied to me. It's the 2011 Melbourne cast recording. Guess I'm the proud owner of the Australian cast soundtrack. I guess since the US tour's soundtrack couldn't join us today, Cuba's coming along. Something I noticed immediately when the show started was I actually enjoyed Till I Hear You Sing and the opening circus numbers. Like, I really enjoyed it. I got lost in just the magic and fun of everything. And the guy they had playing the Phantom was really good at singing. Some of his vocal choices I didn't necessarily like, but I could still live with it, especially because he sounds like someone who could play the Phantom, i.e. someone with a higher register voice. I didn't really like so much that during Till I Hear You Sing, they had this sort of zigzaggy scrim around the curtain opening, which isn't really a good way to describe it, but I've got nothing else. And we were seated way up in the balcony, so the scrim kind of got in the way of being able to see what the Phantom was doing there in that song, but it wasn't too different from the Australian version, so it wasn't that hard to figure out what he was up to. They also had that Christine portrait, and unfortunately the scrim did get in the way of seeing if it actually moved or not. Funnily enough, from what I saw, they didn't really do the faces in the mirror type thing again. I'm not sure if it's something that they just technically couldn't do, or if someone on staff didn't really think that was necessary. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter, because it seemed like there was someone who worked on this version of the show who actually cared and wanted to make it better. Raw was just a little bit toned down in this version. As I mentioned in the start, there's a lot of lyrical changes, especially made throughout the first act. I can't remember what the song was called, but whatever song Gustav sings before Beauty Underneath has been taken out completely and just rewritten. As with Beauty Underneath, which I kind of mourn, but I'm really interested in the song they replaced it with, which makes this even more of a disappointment. I don't even know why the mask on here is sparkling. There's no reason in the show given. I don't know. The unfortunate part about what they replaced Beauty Underneath with is we don't really get to see Eric having that moment of, oh my god, this is my son. It just sort of comes up later when Gustav freaks out about his face. But I still love the song because it emphasizes Gustav and Eric's budding relationship and connection about the beauty underneath. How they can relate by being able to see things most people don't. Those are really the only songs that have been drastically changed. For the most part, it's just a few lyrical changes here and there. Like, I think my favorite one was when Eric was being all like, oh, but we know why I left, and Christine's like, I don't know why. She literally says that instead of we both know why. I love it. Overall, the cast was really good. Again, there were a lot of choices that especially Christine and Eric made with their voices that I didn't quite like, just their inflections and how they said certain things, but overall it was really good, and I would listen to a soundtrack with these people. Raul is a little bit toned down, but he's still overall the drunken jerk. Something I find interesting though is Christine and Eric's relationship, especially in the first act, is a lot more violent. He's more openly like the abuser who would threaten your physical well-being. He's actually legit frightening when he's telling Christine to sing for him or else. And it's not like subtle or anything, it's more out and out. He's going to kill her if someone doesn't stop him. I mean, technically, I'm sure he wouldn't purposely kill Christine, but we can see how careless he can be. Just watch the 25th anniversary show. But unfortunately, these changes have been overall disappointing. I really thought that they were going somewhere with all these changes in the first act, but then the second act reads basically like how it went in every other version. Christine still dies, and we're just left with a lot of questions. And Christine embracing the Phantom is made even more weird and unnerving because we saw how he treated her. She was legit frightened of this man in this very musical, and yet she embraces him and kisses him after her song. On the bright side, beautiful isn't repeated to death. I think the worst part of the US tour version is that it made me hope. By intermission, I was telling people they might actually go somewhere with this. They might have actually changed the ending. but instead I got the flawed narrative that I spent about 40 minutes ranting about. I left the theater just kinda defeated, not just because I dared to hope and it got dashed, but also because it seems like someone on staff recognized the issues with the show and tried to make them better. They tried to remedy it, but either they didn't want to or couldn't figure out something to change in the second act to make things better, or maybe there was someone else who was forcing them to keep to the status quo. It really sucks because I want to like Love Never Dies. I want a good version to be made of it. We might never get it, but I'm holding out hope, especially with how much the story has transformed, and against all odds, it's going on tour in the US right now in yet a different version. There are people who, for whatever reason, care about the show, and maybe they can change it for the better. Do you guys think there's any hope to remedy the show? What changes would you make? I guess technically at this point, I'm of the opinion that Love Never Dies shouldn't exist at all, especially because the first musical was very well wrapped up and ended quite conclusively. But if it's going to exist, I'd like it to at least be okay. We're not quite there yet. Maybe it's silly of me to hope, but I'm hopeful for it. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.